Good morning. My name is Raul Salazar. I am the Chief of the United Nations Office for Disaster Reduction, the Secretariat for the Americas and the Caribbean, based in Panama City. I'm pleased to join you to present some of the images that we have of the region in terms of how we have advancing in the use of geographic and spatial information to support the Sendai Framework. But before that, I think it's important that we set the context in which these developments are taking place in the region. First, in 2015, when the Sendai Framework was discussed, there was a context of a rising trend in the economic losses of disasters. You can see in this chart, in the orange line, how the economic losses have been increasing globally, and while at the same time the mortality risks have been decreasing. This could be identified as an achievement of the efforts of countries and regions in general to reduce disaster risks. However, in the region of the Americas and the Caribbean, and taking into account a recent study that UNDRR developed jointly with CRET of the University of Louvain, the last 20 years, the period from 1997 to 2017, the Americas and the Caribbean region has concentrated nearly 53% of the economic losses that have happened around the world. That compared to what it means in terms of extension and population of Americas and the Caribbean, this absorption of losses is disproportionate to whatever other extension the regions of the globe have. So we have to look then into this condition and what are the drivers making our region, in this case, to absorb a largest part of these losses the last 20 years. And this leads us to one of the main concerns, let's say, of the international community when they got together in 2015, and 184 countries adopted what is called the Sendai Framework for Disaster Reduction, which is basically an international commitment towards 2030 to reduce the impact of disasters in terms of economic losses, in terms of lives, but other assets that are the basis of the sustainable development of the societies in the globe. For doing this and having this context of this concern of the losses that were taking place around the globe and the threats that these losses meant for development aspirations, the Sendai Framework identified 4 main priorities. The first one related to understanding disaster risk. Basically, we need to develop our knowledge of what is happening, understand the hazards, to then, once understanding this hazard, develop better policies reflected in what is called the governance of disaster risks. Basically, what we want is that all the policies, legislative frameworks, national disaster strategies, and local disaster strategies reflect this knowledge to be better protected and ensure the future. But we also need that this development is based in a solid infrastructure, an infrastructure that is composed both of investment from the private sector and the public sector, but investment that are risk informed. It means that whatever we build from now on is informed by the context of complexity brought by the hazards that exist currently and protect those assets for the future. And the fourth priority is related how we are going to learn from the past to better construct for the future. It's what is called building back better. But in this context, what place has the advances of the use of geographical and spatial information to contribute to these priorities and goals and aspirations of humanity? The Sendai Framework is very explicit in indicating that at the national and local levels, we need to promote real-time access to reliable data, make use of space and in-situ information, including geographical information systems, and use this information and communications technology for advancing towards these targets and aspirations. And at the global level, it makes a very strong call for this sharing and knowledge to be shared among countries and regions, creating different types of platforms to share these advances in technologies, information, to nurture the decision and policy making at the national levels. What has happened in the region? If we take a look at the regional level, what has been the advances in the region, we see multiple advances that have been developed in collaboration on application of this call of the Sendai Framework. We see, for example, that there exists a framework, a global framework that is called the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, that is coordinator or facilitating the coordination and exchange of this knowledge among countries and regions. We have different initiatives, for example, the one developed by the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, initiative of GeoSur, that is basically a platform gathering all this type of information that is allowing countries to build hazard maps at different instances and levels. We have, for example, the Global Geospatial Information Management in the Americas. We have the Spatial Data Infrastructure Member States and Territories that have been promoted by the Association of Caribbean States that have benefited 19 countries so far. And this has been a inter-regional collaboration with funds from Mexico, from Chile, but also these intergovernmental organizations convened by the Association of Caribbean States. We have seen, for example, how the Caribbean region has benefited from different instances coming from, in this case, the support of the NASA, for example, applying this knowledge in gathering this information and bringing this information for the benefit of the islands and the hazardous context that they faced. But what is happening at the national level is important also to remark. At the national level, and this is an information coming from a recent document produced by the UN GGIM. Basically, what it's saying that at the country level, countries have advanced and they at least give an important step in advancing in geospatial information. How this knowledge is being applied is a matter of different, it's applied in different areas and sectors. And the collaboration among countries is becoming very active in this line. What are the challenges and opportunities that we face? As we have seen, there are good practices to share and possibility to facilitate this horizontal cooperation, regional and national. And there are many initiatives integrating geographical information now that have been carried in the region with excellent outcomes, but it's necessary to further these developments with integration in the Sendai Framework targets. How we link this information to the development of basic infrastructure, risk-informed basic infrastructure. How we link this information to reduce economic losses to the disasters. How we link this information for a current target that ends up in 2020 that is calling for countries to develop national and local plans. And how many of these plans are risk-informed in terms of using this geospatial information in developing these maps? We have seen very little of them in the region. We need to continue linking these advances. It's not that the advances are not there. The matter is how we link this knowledge to the processes of building these maps to make them more effective and closer to the reality. In addition to that, we need to contextualize the description of risks. Recently, the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction developed this concept of systemic risk, which is basically opening the complexity of the reality that we face every day. We cannot talk of a single hazard anymore. We can now relate to a cascade effects of multiple hazards happening at the same time. COVID-19 is an example of this. But we need to understand this and we need to apply the technology, geospatial and geographical information knowledge to better support the policy making in this complex type of hazards that the humanity faces today. And finally, we need to make sure that whatever we developed in the region is not only remaining in the region. We need to take advantage of this technology development that are happening simultaneously in other regions to make this knowledge wider. Getting specifically to the national plans, it is an opportunity. There is an opportunity now for this knowledge and these institutions to link to the efforts that are taking place in the Caribbean, in South America, and Central America for developing these national disaster risk reduction plans. These national disaster risk reduction plans also have a version and implications in the development of local disaster risk reduction plans, which are the places where disasters are happening. We better need to connect knowledge, national plans, and bringing this knowledge also to the local level. This is what we wanted to present to you, share with you this knowledge and appreciation for your time and ready to answer your questions. Thank you very much.